What's up, everybody, and welcome to World of Matchups 2022 NFL Draft Recap Show. My name is Dexter Reid, and I'm coming to you live and direct from the Grab It Television Studios here in sunny Las Vegas, Nevada. As always, on the controls to my right, a man that needs no introduction anywhere in the civilized free world. Ladies and gentlemen, Spencer The Wiz.
Great to be here, Dex, as always.
Super excited. Both of us were able to go to the draft this week because it was here in our home city of Las Vegas. Some thoughts on the draft. I thought that Vegas did a really good job. Obviously, the pomp and the circumstance is something that you're going to always get here in Las Vegas. A couple things I didn't like, though, Spencer. It seemed kind of like an air hanger out there in the back behind the Link Promenade. I kind of like an indoor draft pick, and I thought the sound was kind of lame. Other than that, I think Las Vegas did a fantastic job. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I did want to say that because when I got there, I had to go after work, so I was pretty late to the party. I went there like when the Commanders were on the clock pretty much, and I thought the sound was very strange because I was in the back, and there was obviously a sea of people there in front of the actual draft stage. I couldn't hear them. Yeah. I don't know. It's probably like on purpose, but it sounded like when they were on stage and I could hear them, it sounded like they were bombing. I didn't think they were, but in any case, it's Vegas, so I feel like it kind of had to be outside. I'm just glad they didn't do it at the Bellagio fountain and boated out the draftees like they were originally planning to do before it got canceled. Like, I'm glad that didn't happen because that would have been so overly dramatic and so weird. Yeah. But overall, the draft experience was pretty good. It was weird to walk on Las Vegas Boulevard. That was the weirdest part to me because it's like I felt like I was doing something wrong because it's like the busiest street obviously in the city. Yeah. But overall, I'm glad that nothing inside of the strip that was like the street was closed down, but you could go anywhere and still like buy things. Like the strip was still open, which again is just a very Vegas thing to happen.
Oh yeah, Las Vegas, they're getting their money no matter what. I did think parts of it were kind of bizarre. The whole red carpet thing at the Bellagio is cool, and then busing guys over to the Link Promenade. They had to do that. I was fortunate enough to get a VIP pass from a good friend, so I was all the way up front on the second level looking down at everybody, and even up there I thought the sound was kind of a little, I don't know, it was a little construed. I mean, obviously everyone's booing the commissioner, but in order to hear each pick, it really had to get kind of quiet, and so I think Vegas has to hold an L on that. But other than that, I think they did a fantastic job. All things considered, Vegas should definitely host a lot more of these moving forward. So let's get into it, okay? World of Matchups draft winners are, in my mind, number one, all New York teams did fantastic. The Jets and the Giants take home the prom queen. The Kansas City Chiefs, to me, my team come in right behind those two. And I think the Baltimore Ravens had a hell of a draft. Who are your winners for the draft, Spencer?
I would say, I think the Jets probably did. I mean, they got guys who are going to be starting right off the bat. And they, drafting twice inside the top 10 is a lot of pressure and not easy to do, but I liked everything that they picked up. So I got to give them a lot of credit.
Yeah, Douglas killed this draft. I mean, he stuck his foot in the ass of every pick. I mean, they got day one starters everywhere.
A little bit of luck, honestly, from other teams drafting bad, but that's how the world works. That's how the world works.
Yes, one man's trash is another man's treasure, and another team doesn't want to pull the trigger, and then all of a sudden you get stuck with an amazing pick like Jermaine Johnson. Like, how is he there? That's unbelievable. So, World of Matchups 2022 draft losers are, for me, the Green Bay Packers, without a doubt, the Dallas Cowboys, and the New England Patriots. Honorable mention has to go to the Rams and the Chicago Bears. I didn't like any of these teams' drafts.
The Jaguars lost to me. I think they picked the wrong guy first overall.
I agree.
I would have sooner picked... Let's see. I'll go down the list here just very quickly. I know we're going to talk about them. I would have sooner picked Akeem Ikwonu. I would have picked Sauce Gardner.
Sauce.
I mean, Kayvon Walker is exciting, but a guy who is a run stuffer. Now, he's versatile. He did play in coverage at the defensive end position, so you got to appreciate that. But with someone who doesn't have, pass rushing a skill set, not developed.
He was the best player on his team.
I don't like that. I just don't like that.
Why bring in Hutchinson for all these visits and not draft him? Mind-blowing to me. I can get on board with that. Honorable mention for the winners as well. The Philadelphia Eagles had a hell of a draft. We don't want to forget giving them their props. You know what I mean? They all of a sudden made a couple different trades, a couple different great draft picks, and now they are in the hunt. The Eagles might be the best team in the NFC East now.
They were also in a very tough position. They traded away and got a lot of first-round picks, which just sounds nice. But then you look at the Raiders, who aren't going to pick up any more of their extra first-round picks. They're all going to be gone next year.
They're all gone.
So
they got to win now.
Yes, they won those trades individually. I'd say the Khalil Mack trade they won, Amari Cooper trade they won. But if you don't do anything with them, then it's just like a wash at that point.
Yeah, you got to do something with them. All right. Enough chitter-chatter. Let's get down to why we're here. Let's grade these picks. Let's break them down. We're going to start with the Arizona Cardinals. Dexter Reid gives them grade B+. They take Trey McBride first, Cameron Tomlin second, and Majai Sanders number 3. This team got better because they trade for Marquise Brown, which, I think they basically did this and get Trey McBride first to make Kyler Murray happy. Murray's been disgruntled. We all know that he's not really happy there, so they're trying to keep this guy happy and give him some weapons. I don't think that they really got that much better. I mean, last year they started hot, and then you saw the real Cardinals at the end of the season. But I think the best pick that they had here is going to be Sanders. They picked him 100 overall, and they need this guy. He's going to be a priority to get to the quarterback. Chandler Jones is now gone. J.J. Watt is a dinosaur now. So they had a decent draft, B+ grade from Dexter Reid. Your thoughts?
I think that anytime you pick, 55 overall, you're just not going to have a very exciting draft. It's okay. I mean, I don't have a detailed, analysis for a guy who picked 100 overall. But, overall, I think their team just doesn't run very well. DeAndre Hopkins gets caught for steroids a couple days ago.
Yeah.
Does Marquise Brown really? They lost, what's his name, fairly so because the Jaguars.
Christian Kirk,
they overpaid for him. He's not going to stay there.
But
I don't know. I just don't like the way their locker room is run, and I just don't feel like anybody who goes in there is going to be in a very warm and inviting rookie camp. It's just something weird about it. I'll give him like a C, honestly, because it's just. I'm not going to say anything too good about the first tight end taken off the board, even though it's kind of cool.
They're uninspiring. They always have been. I'm not a big fan of Cliff Kingsbury either. I'm right there with you. B+ maybe was a little rich, but I think they did a decent job at least making the franchise quarterback be happy, which nowadays is what you have to do. Next, the Atlanta Falcons. Grade A. I give them a grade A. I love Drake London. This is the pick they had to make. They have to get somebody out there that can help Kyle Pitts and Cordarrelle Patterson. London is NFL ready. I like that. They get a Penn State edge, Arnold. I can't pronounce this guy's last name, so I'm not about to try. And then Montana State linebacker Troy Anderson. So they get the help up front to score some points, and then they address defense. I like the fact that they didn't push to get a quarterback, and they waited because we all know that Mariota is just a stopgap. And then they get Cincinnati quarterback Desmond Ridder at 74. That's a really good pick. That's the future for the Falcons. Overall, I don't think they could have played it any better. They're not going to win a playoff game. They're not going to go to the playoffs. They're not going to win a Super Bowl. This is about 2024, 2025 for them, and they played it just right. A grade.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think Desmond was a great pick as the receiver, a Mike Evans type of guy. Maybe not the best hands in the world, but as we all know, this wasn't the best draft. This has been one of the worst drafts, I think, talent-wise, that we've seen in quite a long time. Not to say that none of these guys will ever make a Pro Bowl or something like that, but not a lot of all-pros that jump out on the list, at least from the eyeball test, from the scouting reports. This guy is going to be good for whatever quarterback does step in, and I'm not even convinced that Desmond Ridder is going to be their quarterback of the future. There is no starting level quarterbacks in this draft. There's a lot of development. I don't know if there's a lot of developing that happens in Atlanta. We haven't seen that because Matt Ryan's been the quarterback for so long. But it could work out. It could not. I could see them easily being one of the worst teams in the NFL this year and drafting another quarterback in the top 10.
Yeah, I could see it. I thought that they were going to be lousy this year, and they surprised me and won a lot of games they shouldn't have won. But all things considered, they had a decent draft, grade A from me. Baltimore Ravens. I think that they stuck their foot in the ass of this draft. There's not much that they did wrong here. Okay, starting with safety Kyle Hamilton, number 14 overall. This guy's an absolute monster. Okay, we get Marcus Peters back healthy. We get all. Don't forget that the Ravens were really injured this last year. So they're almost like getting draft picks with all these injuries coming back. A full, healthy Ravens team is going to be a handful to deal with. So I like that. Tyler Lindenbaum, I wasn't in love with, but you do need to solidify that offensive line. You have to be able to pull and protect Lamar Jackson, especially if you think about signing this guy long term. And then they get the Michigan edge, David Ojabo. I absolutely love this guy. Look, What I don't like about this team's draft is that they did nothing to help Lamar Jackson. They are going to be a run-the-ball team. They're going to be a solid play-good defense team. Rashad Bateman is going to be asked to do a whole lot now that Hollywood Brown is out there, and Mark Andrews is going to be getting double-teamed. How are they going to score? That's my biggest issue with them. But other than that, I think they stuck it on draft day. A grade from Dexter Reid. Your thoughts?
Well, this draft was really interesting the way that it shaped up, like how many receivers were taken, and I just don't think there were not a lot of teams that I think thought it was going to shake out this way. The Green Bay Packers, probably number one on that list, thought it was going to shake out this way, and I think you could say the Ravens were in the same situation. They got rid of Marquise Brown, which was a surprise to a lot of people, Lamar Jackson included, but he didn't want to be there. Which also is pretty interesting thinking about Lamar Jackson. I remember he said they were so close, which it doesn't sound like they were, but they did get some really good picks, and that's what it comes down to in the draft. I feel like it's so like we need this position, but like sometimes it doesn't exist.
It just doesn't exist.
So yeah. I think you can't understate like how important the safety position is as well. Trayvon Morig, when he went to the Raiders last year, the second round, he's going to be one of the best safeties I think in the league in a couple years. He had a great rookie season, didn't give up a lot. So if you can get a guy like that at any point in the draft, I think you got to pull the trigger regardless of how depleted they are at the wide receiver position, because reaching isn't going to help you either.
Hamilton's a great pick. I mean, that's the perfect team for him to go to. That team could very well be the no-fly zone. And I'm here to tell you, Hollywood Brown, they never worked to that guy's skill set, and shame on them for that. All that talk about we're going to throw the ball more, you never saw it. And I promise you, this guy will have a year in Arizona that will be better than any year he ever had for the Baltimore Ravens. It's their loss at Arizona's game. They blew it with that guy because he does have talent. Next, the Buffalo Bills. Nobody circles the wagons like the Bills. I give them a grade B. They didn't do anything overly great. They did go out and get Florida cornerback Kaiir Elam, 23rd overall, which you need cornerback help in this league, in the AFC. There's nothing but big arms throwing the ball. You saw the Kansas City game, Patrick Mahomes. All these big arm quarterbacks are coming for you week in and week out, and you got to be able to play man, press. You got to be able to do the cover two, shell. You have to be able to do all of it. This guy's a pretty good talent. I like this Georgia running back, James Cook. He is my favorite pick for them because Devin Singletary, while he did come on strong last year, I think he's a bit overrated, and he's on the last legs of that contract. And this kid Cook can catch the ball like no one's business. Now, we know J.D. McKissick spurned them, so they had to fill that role. I'm not so sure Cook wants to be a Bill. He didn't seem very happy when he got drafted. But all in all, that is going to be a position that's going to has to be used to its strength with him coming out of the backfield, especially on third downs. Baylor linebacker Terrell Bernard, 89th overall. What can you tell? What can you say? You have to have defense to win. You saw how they collapsed at the end of the year, especially in that playoff game. The more defense, the better. Grade B overall for me. I like what they had to do. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I'll agree with you there. I do really like the pick at running back. I don't think Devin Singletary is the best running back in the world, and I think they're honestly looking to replace him at some point, not saying that he's horrible. He's just like a very average type of guy, and you never want to give a running back a second contract. Not really. Never. Not really anymore. It has burned so many teams. The Cowboys. I mean,
look at Zeke.
You could even go to Christian McCaffrey. The guy can't stay healthy anymore.
I thought he was getting traded. For sure.
They should have traded him. But that's a story for a different time. Yeah. But I just think that when you look at the story of the Bills season last year, the beginning of the season wasn't so great for them. They, were struggling. And it wasn't until they realized that you can actually run the ball that the game opened up for them. So if they can have an actual difference maker at the running back position, that could really be the thing that puts them over the edge.
If I've said it once, I've said it a million times. You run for dough, throw for show. You got to be able to run the ball. Ask Andy Reid how not running the ball ended up for the Kansas City Chiefs. This is a great pick. I love Cook.
Or the Seattle Seahawks.
Yeah. We can name a million teams. You got to run the ball. Next, speaking of the Carolina Panthers, another team that I thought had a really good draft. Okay, A- draft. I did think for sure that CMC was going to be traded. It did not happen. I did think for sure that they may take a quarterback and Pickett or Malik Willis. It did not happen, and they actually played their cards right. They get NC State offensive tackle Ike Ekwonu at number 6. This guy's absolute house on fire, a humongous guy. Exactly what you need on that line to protect whatever scrub quarterback they're going to have back there. And then they wait and they take Ole Miss quarterback Matt Corral, okay? Now, do I think Corral will be NFL ready anytime soon? No. So it looks like another year of Sam Darnold and an awful offense coming out of the Carolina Panthers front office. But it is what it is. They finish up with number 3, Brandon Smith, number 120 overall. I like this pick. You need linebacker help. They haven't been right since Kuechly retired. They had a good draft. They get an A- for me. Do I think they're going to the playoffs? No. Do I think they're going to the Super Bowl? Absolutely not. But they are building for the future. The big question mark here is, do they hit on Matt Corral? And if they do, now we're going someplace. Me personally, I would have gotten rid of CMC. I would have gotten whatever I could get on defense for him. You just lost Gilly Locke. You have a decent defense. You can win with a 6th-round running back nowadays in the National Football League. A-, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, to think that Chris McCaffrey at some point was fetching multiple first-round picks, they probably got to be sick to their stomach right now.
I mean, how do you let that go?
I don't know. But, I mean, he was a big integral part of their team, but you just can't run a running back into their grave.
You can't stay healthy.
Their theoretical grave, of course. I'm a big fan of their draft as well. I think Evan Neal was an interesting pick maybe to take over him, but Icky has the higher ceiling, which I think is probably the better idea. And like you talked about, he is massive. He's a huge human being.
Like, if I have a club, that guy's my bouncer.
Yeah, there's no like Mekhi Becton type of guys in this draft, or I can't forget the kid that the Buccaneers picked up, who's been a really good offensive lineman for them too late in the draft. But that's just how it is. There were no offensive linemen to that level. Like, Evan Neal is better technically, but I think if you have the potential to like maybe teach a guy of that size and that athletic ability to be your left tackle, then you've really won the draft. That was a really good pick by them. Very solid. Not the one that's going to get fans excited, but the one that's going to protect whatever quarterback they end up choosing.
Yeah, well, watch Cam be back. Watch Cam Newton be their starting quarterback this year. Yeesh. My goodness. Next, the Bears. The Chicago Bears, one of the teams that I thought had one of the worst drafts this year. They get a C+ grade for me. I really didn't like anything that they did. Justin Fields is your quarterback, and you need to give him help, and that's exactly what they did not do. Matt Eberflus comes in, defensive-minded coach. They start by taking Washington's cornerback, Kyler Gordon, who's not a scrub. He's a good player. So, they nailed it there. You need cornerback help in this league. It doesn't matter AFC. It doesn't matter NFC. You got to be able to shut down the other team's number 1 and 2 wide receiver and anyone coming out of the slot. Penn State's Jawan Brisker. I wasn't in love with him, but at least they went defense. But this is where I have a real problem, okay? They take Tennessee's wide receiver Velus Jones, which is, in my mind, there's only one other pick in this entire draft that I hated more than Jones. And we'll get to him when we start talking about the New England Patriots. This guy is a 24-year-old rookie. He's about to be 25. Are you kidding me? And this guy never really did anything in college. And I see some of these guys on ESPN and Fox Sports talking this guy up like he's something great. I don't think so. If I'm bringing a guy in, he ain't going to be 25 years old. Okay? I'm sorry. Not as a rookie. So I got a real problem with that. What's his shelf life? You spend a 3rd pick on a guy with that shelf life? They didn't help Justin Fields. That's the biggest thing. Justin Fields is an absolute stud. Give this guy some help. This should not be David Montgomery, 3 yards in a cloud of dust, C+ grade from World of Matchups.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think especially when you look in the 2nd round, when a couple of receivers are taken like 5 picks later, like you didn't like either of those guys. You lose Allen Robinson, because I think that, I just talked about this with the Baltimore Ravens that you don't want to reach, but the fact that 2 other teams were interested in 2 other receivers like pretty close by, probably a pretty decent indication that those guys were like 3rd round willing picks. You got to give him something. And even then, when you look at the Ravens receiver room, they at least have a few guys that, you can pass to. Maybe it's going to be a below average receiver room, but when I look at the Bears receiving core right now,
it's disgusting. Who do they have? They got Velus Jones, they got Cole Kmet. Who else? Darnell Mooney is good when he's good, but when he's not, he's not. That's disgusting.
They're not cooking with anything.
They're not cooking with. They got a match and it's wet. Like, they're in trouble. David Montgomery is gonna end up hurt. They're gonna have to use him so much to generate any kind of points, and it's a shame because Justin Fields is an absolute stud.
And then on top of that, they drafted a defensive-minded coach. I don't like the direction they could have an F.
Talked
honestly
about this a couple months back. How do you get Matt Eberflus as your head coach? Nobody knew who this guy was. And now he's your head coach making these kind of decisions. They're going to destroy
the Bears.
The the Bears. C+. Next, who dey? Cincinnati Bengals. I thought they had a good draft. They didn't have a ton of picks, but they made the most of what they needed to do with them. A- grade from World of Matchups, okay? I like Daxton Hill. Always have, always will. 31 overall. They backed that up at 60 overall with Cam Taylor-Britt. Look, another cornerback back-to-back that tells you everything you need to know is that they went back and they watched that Super Bowl tape. They watched those games versus the Kansas City Chiefs, and they're like, we have to get somebody out here that can stop the bomb. We have to get somebody out here that can stop the crossing patterns. They just absolutely have to do it. Okay, and they did. And then they followed up with defensive tackle Zach Carter at 95. This is a good draft. This is a solid draft. Draft for needs. They don't need any help offensively. This team's going to score more points than anyone in the league this year. You mark it down. So what do? You got to go out there and get some people that can stop some people, and that's exactly what they did. A- grade.
Yeah, I agree. And they addressed the offensive line accordingly so in free agency. So they really filled in some of the biggest problems of their team. Obviously, protecting Joe Burrow was like the number one. But I think once you get to this point, and I think the way that you build championship teams is, yes, you do need to have big names, but there's only so much money that goes around. So a lot of the ways that you win championships is rookie contracts. So I think as long as you throw as much as you can at the wall in terms of impact defensive guys, like that's what's going to put you over the edge. And I think you see that in a lot of teams like the Rams, where they just have like guys just show up for them and the superstars kind of fill in the rest of it. You can't just build a team. You got to get some guys who are really young to make a few plays here and there. And I think that's kind of the model that the Cincinnati Bengals are going with.
Daxton Hill is going to be a baller. That secondary is going to be good. I mean, I know Eli Apple sucks and they re-signed this guy. Why, I don't know. I mean, he's terrible. But they addressed the issues. Now, it's up to them to now go out there and repeat what they've done, which is kind of a curse for a lot of these quarterbacks that make it to the Super Bowl and then never make it back there. That could be Joe Burrow, but I don't think it will be. I like what they've done in this draft a lot. A-. Next, the Browns. They get letter grade B from me in World of Matchups. Nothing they did blew me over. You know what I mean? I'm still kind of figuring out where I fall with the whole Deshaun Watson, Amari Cooper thing. I do think they needed more wide receiver help, and they waited till pick number 99 to fill that with David Bell, who I don't love. Martin Emerson, 68, Mississippi State. What's the caliber of talent that he was playing against? UAB, Alex Wright. Okay, I get it. Some help on that line defensively. I like what they're doing. I like their team, but something about this whole new quarterback thing, I don't love. I really don't love it. And they could be a sneaky team that finds their way into the playoffs, and no one will really want to play them because they're tough. They're built tough. But I just didn't love their draft. The whole Deshaun Watson thing has left a bad taste in my mouth. This is a guy that will potentially have LeBron James-style control over a franchise, and I never think that's a good thing. Letter grade B.
It's just average. I don't really have much to say about it. I mean, they just got a bunch of guys, and they're just trying to fill in the gaps, although their roster's pretty much complete. I don't see a lot of rookies making big impacts on their team this year.
No, not a lot of guys are going to get a whole lot of time. They're set. They needed the quarterback. Their wide receiver room is not the best. They're really banking on Amari Cooper and Donovan Peoples-Jones to be really, really good, and I'm not so sure I see that on a run-first team, especially with a new quarterback and the skill set that Deshaun Watson has. We'll see what happens. Next, the boys, the Dallas Cowboys, one of my most disappointing drafts. I did not like them at all. Letter grade C for me. They take offensive tackle Tyler Smith first, 24th overall. Didn't love that. Sam Williams from Ole Miss, 56, defensive end. Didn't love that. And then they take South Alabama wide receiver Jalen Tolbert. I could think of 3 different guys that they could have gotten in that spot that would have probably given them a letter grade A. Not really sure what they're doing. I think Jerry Jones is cancer, personally. I don't know. I just don't know about the Cowboys. You give Michael Gallup, a guy coming off a torn ACL, $1 bazillion guaranteed. Ever since that last blunder play to end their series, nothing has really gone right for them. It's going to be interesting to see how this shakes out. I mean, Smith could be a dominant run blocker, but like Zeke is old. Tony Pollard, is he really a starting running back? There's still a lot of holes on this team. CeeDee Lamb, can he be a number one? I didn't like anything they did here. I gave them a C because I thought the back end of their draft was almost as good as the front end of their draft. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I think when you think about the Cowboys, where they had like a lot of expectations going into the season, they also had a great first game. Like they started out so right. It felt like, even though they lost that close one to Tampa Bay, it was still a great game. I'm like, wow, they're going to set the tone for the season. Like they can compete with anybody. And I think the way that you saw the season shape up, it just wasn't all that great. So when you go into the draft, there's a lot of those feelings still, going into it, whatever you're picking. And when they pick an offensive lineman that doesn't really deserve to go in the first round, it just doesn't feel like they're going in the right direction at all.
Imagine Jermaine Johnson.
Sure, I mean,
on the Cowboys.
I know, and we've already talked
with
about
Micah Parsons.
Yeah, we just talked about this, where it's like, yes, they did need that position very badly, right? They needed it, but if it's not there, it's not going to work out.
Don't reach. That guy, they may have to play that guy at different positions. They're bringing him in, not even sure where he's going to line up. That's your number one draft pick?
Or if he'll be good.
Or if he'll even be good.
It's interesting. I don't agree with it. I just don't like anything that franchise does decision-wise right now, especially bringing in someone like Mike McCarthy. It feels like a very Mike McCarthy type of pick.
I don't like Mike McCarthy, and I don't like Jerry Jones. And it's funny because I was on the Cowboys bandwagon last year. If you remember, I really liked what the Cowboys were doing last year. They were coming on strong, and then they just fell apart like dollar store toilet paper. Next, the Broncos. AFC West stand up. Grade A. Let me tell you something. The Broncos are building a bully. They really are. AFC West is going to be a dogfight every single week. I like what they did here. Oklahoma Edge, 64th overall. Nick Bonito. It's exactly what you needed. You get Greg Dulcich at number 80. He takes over for the loss of Noah Fant. And then cornerback Damari Mathis. Get that defensive help because you are playing guys like Patrick Mahomes, Derek Carr every single week. You cannot have enough cornerbacks. You cannot have enough safeties. I like this for them. And now they get Russell Wilson in there. This is going to be a very good team, okay? Everything about the Denver Broncos that you remember from last year, you just wipe the slate clean with it because they're going to be a different-looking ball club. You got somebody that's now playing to the strengths of their skill players. I like their draft. A overall. Mathis is going to build cornerback depth for the Bronco team. They still got Patrick Surtain. This is going to be a bully. Watch out for them. Don't be surprised. No one. Don't be surprised if you see the Broncos in the Super Bowl. I will even go as far as saying that. Your thoughts?
Yeah, it's hard to comment on the draft, especially when you start talking about the fourth round and stuff. And in reality, when it comes to rounds 4 through 7, I would say probably about 4 or 5 guys in the entire league make an impact. I think it gets overrated, especially here in Las Vegas when you think of Hunter Renfrow and Max Crosby. For every Max Crosby, I can give you 5 Quentin Bells, and I bet you don't.
60 guys that don't even make the team.
Exactly. So it's hard to comment on that, but I think they put their chips in the middle of the table before this draft even started. Yeah. So I think
they had their draft already.
I think that's also a part of the draft because I think when you think of the picks they didn't have, what did they get instead? Quarterback. Well, there weren't any first-round quarterbacks in reality outside of Pickett. Maybe if he's worthy of a first-round pick. See what I'm saying? It's like you have to think of like what if they drafted Russell Wilson in the first round, and I think that goes into their draft grade, at least for me, especially for the Raiders. I think the Raiders are probably, if not the top 3 biggest winners of this draft, and we'll talk about them, because they would have drafted a receiver in the first round. And if you look at Devontae Adams,
he's better than anyone.
By the time the Raiders would have drafted it, pick 23, there'd be no one there. So they won it. So I view the Broncos in a very similar light. So I'll give them I agree with you on the draft grade there.
I love what the Broncos have done. They did a great job, and I'm looking forward to the AFC West this year with a level of enthusiasm that I have not seen from this division in quite some time, because I think all these teams are going to be good, and it's someone can't make the playoffs, and it's going to be interesting to see who it ends up being. Next, the Detroit Lions. I got some footage on my TikTok page from some Detroit Lions fans that I met at the draft. Let me tell you something. There was a ton of Lions fans at that draft. A ton. I was shocked, and I get a B+ from me. And they nailed this draft, at least the first couple picks of it, I think. Hutchinson should not ever have been there at number 2. That's number 1, okay? There is no way that the hometown Michigan edge should have been available to stay home and play for this team. And he's fired up about this. Let me tell you something. I'm going to be the only person that's even saying this, and I will die on this hill by myself. The Detroit Lions are turning a corner. They're turning a corner. Then they turn around, and they what they gave up to draft up and get Jameson Williams, someone should be arrested for. Someone should be arrested for that. How? They gave up nothing, and then they got this guy, and this guy is a absolute stud. Now, the ACL concerns might have some people lukewarm on him. I wanted Kansas City to go up and get him. It didn't happen, and then Olave went, and then I was like, okay, just get defense. But I love what they did. And then they follow that up with Pascal at defensive tackle. Look, they got some guys who were hurt last year. When they come back, I'm telling you, think about their offense. Now, we know Goff is not great, but Goff is not a scrub either, okay? St. Brown, Williams, they got a great tight end. They're a good team. They just signed DJ Chark, who's no scrub. Their running back is all world. The running back doesn't get enough credit. I wish that was my running back. They got a good draft, B+. I held off but giving it an A just because they're the Detroit Lions. Your thoughts?
I'll give him an A. I'll do it for you.
Yeah.
So they got the best player in the draft, at least in my opinion, Aiden Hutchinson. He was the most talented player to come out. I wouldn't say by far, but a pretty good margin. And I also like Williams, the receiver there. People are comping him to Deshaun Jackson. When I scout him and I look at him, I think more of Deebo Samuel. He's kind of a bigger dude, and he's the kind of guy that you want to give the ball to no matter what. They're going to be use him very with a lot of versatility. He's a versatile type of receiver. Maybe not the greatest range in terms of pass catching, but that's what reminds me more of Deebo. When I think back at Deebo tape, it's because he makes plays once the ball's in his hands. I don't think of Deebo as a guy who's going to go up and get everything, and I think they have plenty of player personnel to kind of fill in those gaps. I don't need that from him, and hopefully they use him right. And yeah, like I said, about as good as it gets for 2 top 15 picks in a draft with not a lot of talent.
Yeah, not bad. They got Hawkinson. They're going to be okay. Let's not forget that that's a team that got jobbed at home versus the Ravens. Ravens, I think, are a decent team. That's a game they could have won. There's some wins or some almost wins on their schedule last year where they were 1 or 2 plays away from winning. You bring in a generational talent like this kid Williams, if that ACL holds up, watch out. Next, Green Bay Packers. I didn't like their draft. A lot of people did. I saw people giving them A's, and I'm going to give them a C. I didn't love their draft at all. I've never seen a team so unwilling to help their franchise quarterback like the Packers. They just don't want to help Aaron Rodgers. I don't know if they're sticking it to him because he's robbing them blind, but they take Quay Walker, who I never liked. I think he's overrated. I mean, they do need help on defense. They need help on special teams. They need help everywhere. But you just lost Davante Adams. You should be going after the top 2 wide receivers in the draft. I'm sorry. Christian Watson, I like him. But they're going to ask this guy to do a ton as a rookie. Kenny? There's not that many Randy Mosses that come in and are game ready, making these kind of impacts in the National Football League. And then they take an offensive tackle and Sean Ryan. Didn't like him. I don't know what this team is doing, but I think they're thinking that they can rest on their laurels. We're going to be 14-3, 13-4 every year. That's just because that's what we do. Aaron Rodgers doesn't play defense. And I can almost write the script out for you folks. They're going to make it to the playoffs if they're lucky, and then they're going to get their shit pushed in by a team like San Francisco. It doesn't matter where they play. At some point, you have to recognize where you're hurting and fill those holes. Losing Davante Adams was monumental. I shaved 4 wins off their win total just because of that loss. They get a C from me.
They should have seen the writing on the wall for the draft and seeing that guys were trading up for wide receivers and no other position for the most part in the first round. I'm not going to say the 2 guys they drafted, and there is going to be a lot of merchants on the Georgia defense because they were all so good. And only time will tell to see who is actually good from that defense, because there were just so many guys that they had the most drafted in one draft. That was the whole thing about this year, that Georgia had the most players taken from a single team ever. I let's say they're fine. I think they're going to be fine for the Green Bay Packers. But again, without having an impact wide receiver, they're going to probably depend on Jarvis Landry. They're probably going to bring him in, and that's going to be their guy. Yeah, that's not a place where I want my franchise to be because I've seen it. The Raiders do that, where they just bring in whoever, and it just doesn't work.
Alan Lazard couldn't carry a bag of groceries. You know what I mean? And I know you got solid running backs, but you have to be able to stretch the field. Your quarterback is known for stretching the field. Who's he throwing to? It's like he's going to throw the ball up, run down the field, and then catch it. You got to get somebody else in there. I think it was a horrible way to go about this draft. I don't like what they're doing at all, and I've never liked Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers. They get a C grade from me. Next, Houston Texans. I think they made a huge mistake here not taking Sauce first, but Stingley is an okay player. A lot of people think he's better than he really is. I think Stingley's a little overrated, not heavily overrated. I don't think Stingley even wanted to play for the Texans. There was a player like when Goodell handed him the hat, threw the hat down or dropped the hat. I think it might have been Stingley. I was looking for that footage. I'm going to see if we can find that footage. We got to find that and put that on the show. I was right there, and I was like, did he really just do that? Anyway, I don't love the pick. Sauce Gardner there would have been a much better pick. Offensive lineman, Kenyon Green. I do like that because you got to protect Davis Mills back there. Fine. Baylor safety, Jalen Pitre. Okay, he's an okay player. You're just letting your basic whole secondary go to other teams. Kansas City's just got 2 of your former players, so they have to rebuild there. But this is a team that is lukewarm at best. We know they're not going anywhere. They got a million running backs. They got a bunch of no-name players. All they have is Brandon Cooks and Davis Mills. Not enough to really win more than 4 or 5 games in the National Football League. And I don't care who your coach is. Your thoughts?
The one thing they did that was smart was not draft a quarterback, because I just don't feel like they would have ever put him in a position to succeed. And that's what these quarterbacks need very badly, is like deep understanding of like going to a good team or like a team that they can sit behind for 2 years. And the Texans just wouldn't provide that.
Mentored
obviously.
by, yeah. There's no one there. I mean, Davis Mills is horrible, but I think he's not that bad.
So that's a win for them, but I think that's where it stops. I mean, Derek ran a 4.33, and I feel like when teams get obsessed with
speed
tangibles, that's where you start getting into trouble, because Sauce Gardner is objectively a better corner than him. Sauce Gardner isn't slow either. I think they were just like, oh, this is the measurables, and I think that's what John Gruden and Mike Mayock were merchants of.
Yeah.
This guy he's fast, or he did this in this certain drill, which drills aren't what happens on the field. They're only just a piece of the puzzle, right? Like, I don't think he's ever going to reach his 4.33 speed in actual game. It's just
I'm going to go on tape right now saying I think the combine is overrated.
It can be. I think
the combine is overrated. Look at a guy like Dontari Poe.
Yeah.
I don't care how many times you can throw it up. Can you play football?
Yeah. And since 2019, Derek Stingley hasn't had a lot of great game tape.
He hasn't done much. You let Sauce Gardner go over this guy? We're both in agreement there.
And I also thought trading back in the first round was also a bad idea. It's like you need help.
You need help right now.
Take the best player right now.
What are you holding on to picks for?
You're not gonna fix your team in one draft.
Houston Texans. Let me tell you something. I saw this dude on TikTok. He is a Houston Texans fan. Get that GM out of there. They said if Laurie Smith's hands aren't on it, we don't want it. That GM should be fired before I eat another meal. He was going in. He said this guy is so bad. Get him out.
So important because of how much they traded away. Like, again, like we talked about, you could win the trade, and even theoretically, they won the Deshaun Watson trade.
And
how
still
much they
lose
did.
The trade, though.
But if they don't do anything with it, then there's nothing.
What are you doing? You're trading back for. Makes no sense. But it is what it is. The Texans are the Texans for a reason. Next, Indianapolis Colts. Another draft I wasn't really in love with. I give them a C. I don't know what's up with this team. They have players, but they're really never going to go anywhere where it counts. They just rotate quarterbacks in every other year. They're doing the same thing this year with Matt Ryan. They bring in Cincinnati wide receiver Alec Pierce, who, he's a decent player, but is he going to do anything? I mean, T.Y. Hilton is done. They need other help, besides a 50-50 ball guy on the other side. They bring in Jelani Woods, the tight end. I mean, the tight ends are a mess as well. I don't like this draft. They bring in Central Michigan, Bernhard Raimann. I like the fact that they're, committed to at least putting big bodies on the line, because everybody who seemed to be their quarterback for the last 5 years is always looking up at the top of the dome because he's always on his back. But just nothing inspired me about what the Colts did on Thursday, Friday, or Saturday.
They're just dudes. And
they're just a bunch of guys.
Yeah. They went all in before the draft started. They're another team.
I mean, Pittman's great. But can he do it by himself without some help? You know what I mean? Mo Alley Cox, get that guy out. That guy's a bum. You know what I mean? They got old man, another dude out there. They just got like you said, I think that's the perfect way to describe them. They got Matt Ryan and a bunch of guys. And it sucks because they got a good defense. Address that defense. I don't know. Eric Johnson from Missouri State. not a big fan. You know, the whole Carson Wentz thing cost them a first round pick. And then they made up for it a little bit on day 2, but at the end of the day, I don't think they had a very good draft. Next, the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Jaguars. You and I are both in agreement. Georgia edge, Trayvon Walker, first overall, is an absolute diaper. I mean, that's terrible. Why did you host Hutchinson then? Hutchinson was practically living in Jacksonville, and then you miss out on him. I don't think Walker was even the best Georgia Bulldog. It makes no sense. Don't get cute. Let me tell you something also. I'm going to go from the combine to this. Having the first pick overall is oftentimes overrated in the National Football League and works against you because there's so much talent that you can shit the bed and freeze and then not pick the right guy. And I think that's exactly what happened here. Now, I like Devin Lloyd. I like Devin Lloyd more than I like Trayvon Walker. Devin Lloyd will be solid for them. You know what I mean? I'm not sure if Miles Jack is still there or they're going to get rid of him. Devin Lloyd is good. They get Kentucky center Luke Fortner. They didn't have a terrible draft, but they could have had an A-plus draft. So I give them a B-plus. I still don't think they're going anywhere. They have a bunch of guys that they brought in on the offensive side of the ball to make it look like they're actually helping that quarterback. But I'm not feeling what Jacksonville's doing. Your thoughts?
No, I'm not picking up what they're putting down at all. And I think that, to me, like the right move here, considering what your situation is, take Ike Ekwonu. Maybe some people get upset at you, but it's like, okay, you pick up a guy who you know is going to be your starting left tackle for your newly franchised quarterback who wasted a year of his life because of who you brought in, Urban Meyer, last year. Mm-hmm. Just make the right move. You don't have to make the headlines, because if this guy ends up just being like someone you bring in for rundowns, then you look really stupid. Yeah, so take the guy who's going to be there for the next 10 years and just move on with your life.
Move on.
Sure, you'd love to trade back. There's not always going to be those options there. Just take the guy who's right in front of you. Don't have to overthink it. And I think they overthought it. If they're not going to take Aiden Hutchinson, which they should have, if you don't want to take him, then pick the guy who makes more sense.
Take Sauce. Everybody needs a shutdown corner.
There was no such thing as reaching in the top 10 because all the guys were clumped together in one tier.
They're all the same guy. Take Sauce. Really made no sense.
I don't like it.
I didn't love what they do, but I give them a B+ for effort. Next, my team, the Kansas City Chiefs. I wanted this draft to go so well because of the fallout from the Tyreek thing, and they're really trying to piece a bunch of different things together, and they really ended the season in a fashion which they shouldn't have. And I think Brett Veach is the best GM in the entire NFL, and he showed you why his name is his name. I give them an A+ draft, and I'm not just being a homer. 5 of their picks were draft steals. And now they start out by getting Washington cornerback Trent McDuffie. How is this guy there at 21? It's beyond me, okay? He's not in the same school of Marcus Peters, but he comes from the same school, and he is physical, which is exactly what the Chiefs needed to get. They needed to get physical. With the loss of Charvarius Ward, this guy could be a day one starter. Purdue edge, George the Greek Freak Karlaftis at 30. Look, he's a one-trick pony, but the one trick he has, he does, and does well. And he gets after that quarterback. And he's a punisher. He can't wait to sack the quarterback. He's a physical specimen up front on the other side of Frank Clark. This is exactly what the Chiefs needed to do. If they weren't going to go up and get Jameson Williams or Chris Olave, they needed to stand pat and fill these needs, and that's exactly what they did. Now, Sky Moore, you know what I mean? I'm not in love with gadget smaller players, but he could be used in the same fashion as Tyreek Hill and still get some kind of production. I'd like the pick there. Brian Cook, physical safety, Leo Chanel. This guy wants to hit anything moving. The Kansas City Chiefs nailed this draft in my mind. You're getting starters all over the board. These guys are all going to make the team, and they go from a team that was wearing Gators and not Timberlands to being from finesse to physical. This is what they needed, A+ draft grade. Your thoughts?
This draft really all depends on like their grade on like what their receiver production brings in. So you do get rid of, your top wide receiver, Tyreek Hill, which is interesting. Maybe the right move. I mean, technically they could have used another year of him. You don't want to let him walk necessarily, but it's like,
you don't want to pay him $30 million either.
You don't, but it's like a Super Bowl is so valuable, right? Let's say that they kept him and they won a Super Bowl next year because of it. It's like then when he walks, it doesn't feel as bad. So is Juju really going to come in and kind of be the Juju of old where he had that 1,000-yard season and then he tailored off? Are we going to get that version of him, or are we going to get the kind that's just not as good? Because when you ever have 2 first-round picks, it's very interesting to trade up. And I'll give the credit to, a little bit like I talked about the Packers and the Chiefs, in that I didn't think that many receivers would go before 15. Yeah. Like, that was pretty extreme. I was
hoping that they would just fall.
Yeah, if they go past 15, all right, then you start packaging your first round, then your third rounders to go up. So I guess that probably took them a little bit by surprise. It's a big leap for them from 23 to like 13 to maybe pick one of those guys. It could have been worth it, though, depending on, how good the receiver core is and how good Pat Mahomes deals with having his safety blanket gone and if he can fill in those gaps. But overall, they did pick up some pretty good guys. So it's a really solid draft. I think they made the right moves given the circumstances. They didn't trade up for anybody. I thought they picked, the right people for those spots. And, yeah, I'd give them, probably B+, maybe even an A.
Yeah, I think they did really well. Just to comment on your point about Juju, this is why Brett Veach is so good, because his contract is incentive late in 1 year, and he's going to want a long-term deal, so he's going to be motivated. I think the big question is Sky Moore going to be as good as a guy like Jameson Williams coming off that ACL, or Chris Olave, who has Jameis Winston throwing him the ball? I think they made the right decisions by standing pat, and even their back-end picks, Darian Kennard, humongous offensive tackle with an attitude, and they get Watson from Washington State, the Marshall quarterback, Johnson. They know that their secondary is riddled. So they're at least doing what they have to do to, 1, fill the position, 2, steal the position, and 3, bring in free agents that you're not paying a whole lot. So they're going to be hungry to get long-term deals. The Ronald Jones, the Juju Smith. The only person they paid was MVS. I didn't like that, but it'd be interesting to see what they do. I think the Chiefs are still the Chiefs until otherwise. Until I see someone knock the Chiefs out of the AFC West, they're going to be my pick to win that division.
They are in a unique position, too. Being a playoff team with multiple first-round picks or multiple top 3-round picks, it just doesn't happen a lot, because a lot of the times to be a playoff team, you got to trade your picks to get the guys like the Rams. But the Chiefs didn't have to do that. So
the Chiefs are rebuilding and contending in the same year. What other team is doing that?
Doesn't happen.
Doesn't happen.
The Packers, maybe. I don't know.
The Packers are going to win 6 games. You heard it here first. Brett Veach for president. Let's roll. Next, the Raiders. Let's stay with the AFC West. I love what the Raiders did here. I have loved what the Raiders have done since the season ended. There has nothing that the Raiders have done that I have not liked here. Okay? The only thing that they did that I have a real problem with was not keeping Rich Bisaccia on staff. That's it. Okay? I don't love their coach, but McDaniels will be good for them. He'll be good for them. And they go out and they sign Carr to the right contract. They get Devontae Adams. They get Chandler Jones. I mean, they are cooking with gas. And now they bring in Memphis OG Parham, 90th overall. Don't forget, they didn't have a pick for a long time, and they still get a quality player like Dylan Parham. And Georgia running back here, Zamir White. Now, this is the guy I want to keep my eye on, is Zamir, because they are going to get rid of Josh Jacobs. They didn't pick up that 5th-year option. Look, I know as a Chief fan, I'm not supposed to like the Raiders, but I'm a football fan first. And the National Football League is better when 2 things are happening. 1, when the Cowboys are good, and 2, when the Raiders are good. And the Raiders are on their way. They are pushing all their chips to the middle of the table, and they're saying, we're going for this shit. And I think that they got something cooking here. They rounded out with defensive tackle from LSU, Farrell Jr., who you cannot have enough guys on your defensive line who are big and strong. I love what they've done. I give them an A- grade. Let's roll. Your thoughts?
I was very happy. To get a starting center/guard, they're going to play him at both positions probably, is great because they don't really have anybody. It's been a rotating staff. Now, I think the offensive line overall has been pretty decent. So whenever you can get a guy who could potentially be on that line from year one, that late in the draft, we don't have a first or second rounder, you got to be really happy about. I love the running back, too. He was the backup running back, but he was great.
That name, too. That name. You know what I mean? Like, he comes in knowing he's going to be good.
No, for sure.
I like that.
They didn't pick up Josh Jacobs. They don't want to pay him.
They don't want to pay him.
I don't blame him. I wouldn't want to pay him either. He's been hurt a lot. Now, he's good. Don't get me wrong. But if this guy can produce decently, and they're going to give him a lot of opportunities to do that, Josh Jacobs hitting the curve, and we're saving a lot of money.
He'll be a third down back that becomes a day one starter because Josh Jacobs is going to be on Houston in 2 years. I love this draft for the Raiders. They are really going for it. And the bottom line, I think, with the Raiders is now, this is a no more excuses year.
Sure.
Every year there's an excuse. Well, Carr didn't have this, and he didn't have that. Dude, you got Devontae Adams. You got Chandler Jones. You got Mad Max. You got ballers. You got players everywhere. I don't want to hear it anymore. You got Darren Waller. You know what I mean? You fixed your defense a little bit. This is a year that if you don't make the playoffs and win a game, to me, it's a failure year. That's how I see it.
It's tough.
That's
AFC West is the best division of football.
It's a fight every week, but the Raiders have ponied up, and I like what they've done, but now they have to go out and prove it. All right, guys, that's the first 16 teams. We're going to take a quick break here, pay some bills. We'll be back with the other 16 teams. I'm Dexter Reid. That is Spencer The Wiz, and you are watching World of Matchups 2022 NFL Draft Recap. All right, guys, we are back from break. Let's continue the breakdown of that 2022 National Football League Draft Recap, starting with the Los Angeles Chargers. My San Diego Superchargers didn't really do much in the way of making huge splashes, but I believe that their free agent time is where they made their hay. I give them a grade A. However, they started off taking offensive lineman Zion Johnson, 17 overall. You cannot have enough big guys in front of your franchise quarterback, Justin Herbert, so nobody's going to have a problem with that. They follow that up with safety J.T. Woods from Baylor, 79 overall, redoing that secondary to go along with J.C. Jackson back there. Defense wins championships. I think this team knows that after having years of falling apart when it matters. And then they take Texas A&M running back Isaiah Spiller, 123 overall. Austin Eckler's not going to be there forever. Who's really backing him up? Is Justin Jackson any good? I don't think so. This is a good draft for them. Nothing flashy, nothing fancy, just good old bread and butter drafting. A plus. Well, we'll give them an A grade for the Los Angeles Chargers. Your thoughts?
They get an A just for having a first-round pick. I mean, like, how did they pull that off? All the offseason moves they made, and they still have a first-rounder. You got to give them a lot of credit, their front office, for even making that possible. Yeah. And I think picking an offensive lineman, which is the most important pick, maybe the only pick of the guy that's on their team in a few years, but I think that's all that matters is protecting your guy. And, they were able to accomplish that, so good for them.
Yeah, I like Spiller. That's my favorite pick. He's the frenetic runner who's faster with his speed than pretty much anybody else on that team. The potential there is all world. I like what the Chargers have done in this offseason. They got Khalil Mack. They gave J.C. Jackson a bunch of money. This is the draft that they needed to have. And again, the AFC West is going to be a dogfight every week. And when you look at their team overall on paper, if Herbert can take that next step, don't be surprised to see them go deep in the playoffs. They're a very, very solid team, well coached, good front office. Next, the Los Angeles Rams. A lot of people liked the Rams draft. I did not. I saw people giving them grade A's. I give them more of like a B-. They start off with Wisconsin guard, OG Logan Bruss. Look, you want to keep Stafford upright for sure. You want to keep him healthy. He had a lot of back problems last year because he's getting hit more than most quarterbacks are. So I got no problem with that. They go South Carolina State cornerback Jacoby Durant. Not really a big fan of him. More of like a cool name player than an actual producing player. And then they run it back with Notre Dame's running back Kyron Williams. That shows me your faith in your running backs is at best not 100% solid. I know a lot of guys are hurt. We're going to see what happens with this team. A lot of teams win the Super Bowl and then kind of fall apart trying to run it back. You saw that happen with the Chiefs. You see it happen a lot of times with a lot of teams. They put all their eggs in one basket. They lose Von Miller now to the Bills. Where do we go from here with this team? Can Cooper freaking Kupp have another all-world season like that? I don't know. Where are we going with, what's his face? The dude who made the crazy one-hand catch and then blew his ACL out in the Super Bowl.
Robert.
Odell.
Odell.
ODB, you know what I mean? So ODB is on, who knows? Robert Woods is gone. They don't really have a strong tight end. There's other places I think that they could have gone in this draft. And they chose to go guard and safety and cornerback. I'm not in love with this draft. Your thoughts?
I do like their running back. I was a pretty big fan of this guy in college, but you kind of said it. It's like it's so hard to run it back. It's so hard to win a Super Bowl.
It's almost impossible.
Someone
nowadays.
has to, obviously, but
It's almost impossible to run it back.
Yeah.
Go back to back. Those days are over. Someone said it to me the other day. They said, Dex, the super team in the NBA is dead, but it's now here in the NFL. And that's what's happening. Everyone's just partnering up and ponying up and wanting to play together. And it makes it hard to run it back. I mean, the Chiefs got demolished in the Super Bowl. They weren't even – they shouldn't even been in the playoffs after that performance. You know what I mean? To see this team have that same kind of – be galvanized the same kind of way to make it back, I don't see it happening.
Well, the thing about Super Bowls is that someone has to overperform on their contract. In fact, multiple guys have to overperform on their contract. So when the Super Bowl ends and you win the Super Bowl, you got to pay those guys now. Yeah. I mean, that's just how the cycle works. And you can't, if you pay these guys this much, then you can't keep some of the guys who helped you win the Super Bowl. It's an endless cycle. It's hard to judge guys who are drafting this late in the draft. You know, it's like how much scouting can you really do? It's like that's the job of the GMs. Like us, we probably know more about the first and second round guys.
Yeah, true. And I mean, they got a safety from K-State. I mean, is Jalen Ramsey? I think Jalen Ramsey's a bit overrated. I like Jalen Ramsey, Jacksonville, more than I like L.A. Jalen Ramsey. So I kind of see where they're going with this. He's not going to be great forever, but they had a very uninspiring draft to me. Miami Dolphins, the Fins. I give them a grade B for their efforts. The Dolphins didn't have a whole lot to work with here. The Dolphins were kind of an afterthought in this draft. They only had 4 picks, you know, because they gave them all away. Kansas City spent them, you know, but they have Tyreek Hill. Now, I think in order for this to really pan out for them, Tyreek Hill has to go bananas. And I just don't see it happening. I think him and Jalen Waddle are just going to cancel each other out. And I've said it once, I've said it a million times, and this is to the guy. This guy commented on my breakdown of Tyreek Hill on YouTube because I told him I think Tua sucks. You know, he's like, you can't even pronounce his last name, man. That doesn't take away from the fact that the guy sucks. He's not good, you know. So they get Georgia linebacker Channing Tindall, 102 overall. Okay, linebacker help for sure, and they're a nice young team. I like what they're doing, but this is all going to be about Tua. Texas Tech wide receiver Eric Ekuzama. I don't know about him. California edge Cameron Good, and then Kansas State quarterback Skylar Thompson may be the most underrated pick in this draft class because if Tua is not good and this guy Thompson makes the team, that's your future quarterback. So it's going to be interesting to see where they go. I gave him a B. I think that might have even been being generous. Your thoughts?
Yeah, their hand is going to be on the phone for any quarterback if it comes available. I mean, they're not going to trade.
Is it me, or does Tua suck?
There's a lot of memes out there about.
I don't know.
Tua,
like some people are like, dude, you're so hard on Tua. I don't think he's good. Davis Mills to me is every bit as good as Tua.
They've been involved in every single quarterback trade like that's ever in the past year, so they're not fully committed to him either. Even though the coach says that, that's coach speak. So yeah, they're looking to upgrade the position.
I'll take you to the prom
day.
so we can take some pictures and look good together. But like, I'm not gonna date you. That's Tua.
So
you know what I mean?
They didn't really even have a draft. I mean, they drafted because they had those picks.
They had those picks.
They were on the clock.
They should have just traded those picks and sat the draft out.
Yeah, it almost feels that way. I have no opinion on their draft. It's like they're all in on a team that doesn't have a great quarterback.
Yeah, I hear you on that. Next, Vikings. Vikings, I give them an A- draft. But this is another lackluster draft that, to me, doesn't instill any kind of excitement whatsoever about the Minnesota Vikings. The Vikings have always been that team to me. They're always a couple steps away. They do stupid stuff like paying Kirk Cousins $1 billion. To me, they're going to go nowhere, especially if Dalvin Cook can't stay healthy. I like Georgia safety Lewis Cine. This is a good pick. You cannot not stop teams. And that's something that secondary has not been able to do for years. Patrick Peterson is getting older. You had to do that. Clemson cornerback Andrew Booth, same thing. Fill the need, kind of like Kansas City. Don't let these stay vacated. OG Ed Ingram, I like it. Keep your quarterback upright. Same thing with your cornerback Evans at 118. I like the fact that they said we have these picks. We're not going to be really in positions to get stud players with these picks. We don't have the capital to draft up, but we're going to fill these needs, and if we hit on half of them, we've had a good day. That's what the Minnesota Vikings are. Maybe they'll make the playoffs. I'm not seeing it, but who knows? If I'm them, I'd probably trade Dalvin Cook. I would. Dalvin Cook, to me, is the black Ed McCaffrey. When he's awesome, he's awesome. He can do a lot of different things with the ball in his hands from the backfield and out of the backfield, but he can't stay healthy. Alexander Mattison is a stud. If you put Alexander Mattison on the Miami Dolphins, that's 10 touchdowns and 1,000 yards. Get rid of this guy and get some defensive help. And stop paying Kirk Cousins $1 million. Your thoughts?
Well, they didn't have much of a choice in terms of quarterbacks this year, and I don't think they're going to go after anybody else in free agency. So it's kind of one of those things where like, well, we got to throw somebody out there this year. So they did, and they did overpay him for 1 year, but it's not like they gave him a long deal, so they can still get out of it after this year if they want to. And I think this is a pretty important draft for them. Having 4 picks in the early rounds, I mean, that can change your franchise around if you pick it right. And let's be honest, the Raiders really did do that. I know I hate Mike Mayock. He ruined their first-round picks, but
they did that.
A lot of their later-round picks are the foundation of their team now. Hunter Renfrow, Max Crosby,
dude.
If they didn't draft those players in the 4th round, they're horrible. They're awful. Yeah. So like that made all the difference in the world. So in the same line of thinking, if the Vikings can also get some 2 out of the 4, like you said, then they're in the right place because then they'll probably be just decent again this year. They'll have a good first-round pick next year, and they'll go from there.
I just see the Vikings being like 9-8 always. I just don't.
They always are.
They're the type of team that they're on the road, and there's a team that they're not supposed to beat. They're supposed to get demolished, and you bet against them, and then they find a way to win that game. But then when they're home and rested and a COVID team comes in, they lose that game at home by 20, and Dalvin Cook injures his knee. That's who the Vikings are. And then Kirk Cousins will throw 30 touchdowns and 10 picks, and everyone will think he's in the MVP race. But literally, like, 20 of those touchdowns came when they were down 2 scores. Like, that's who they are. And I just don't ever see them being anything but that.
Yeah, we'll see. They're going to be the team that probably trades up for like a quarterback.
They
need
a quarterback.
And there's going to be a lot of quarterbacks available next year.
Yeah.
So really, they line themselves up pretty nice. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah.
Like
if they hit on half these picks,
and if they're like just half decent next year, they're going to have their pick to maybe trade up for one of the top quarterbacks. And if they find their guy that they like, then they look really good.
You know what they need? They need to end up being the NFC version of the Kansas City Chiefs and find that next great quarterback because this team has got talent.
They're not that far off.
They got talent. Their window has always seemed to be open. They just can't go through it. If they ever got that generational quarterback, they have something cooking. Justin Jefferson is a stud. You're going to have to pay that guy a bazillion dollars.
Adam Thielen they still have there.
Thielen's still decent. They can always go out and get another. Wide receivers are readily available. Groom these guys and let's play ball. I would have got rid of Dalvin Cook for somebody a long time ago, but that's just me. Next. The team that I thought had the absolute worst draft of all 32 teams, the New England Patriots, led by Bill Belichick, which is surprising. But if you know anything about the National Football League, you should know it's really not that surprising because Bill doesn't draft well. He really doesn't. Bill Belichick coaches well, but he doesn't draft well. And it all started off with UT Chattanooga OG's Cole Strange at number 29. I can give you a list of 10 guys that were better. I can give you a list of 20 guys, Spencer. 20 guys that were better than Cole Strange. Is this Bill just trying to be cute? What are you doing there? Why?
Being a coach GM doesn't work in basketball. It doesn't work in football. It doesn't work because it's such a hard. Being a GM is like one of the hardest jobs in sports.
Cole Strange would have been there 4 rounds later.
And that's what everyone's opinion is. And say, oh, it's Bill, he knows better. Go look at their last drafts from the past 5 years. How many of those players are doing anything for them anymore?
And they don't know how to draft wide receivers.
That's for sure.
At all.
He's bad at drafting. He's not good at everything else.
He's a great coach. He's iconic coach. His name belongs on a quarter.
They should just.
His face belongs on a stamp.
But
we're not disputing that. But this is terrible. And then we bring in Baylor wide receiver Tawan, Thornton. I don't know, man. Mac Jones can't throw up the block. Mac Jones is like the white Tua. You know what I mean? You got to ground and pound and throw quick outs to win with this quarterback. And I like Mac Jones, but let's call it what it is. And then Houston quarterback Marcus Jones. This is one of the few picks that I actually did like because you got to fill the J.C. Jackson void. So you hit on that. But South Dakota State Pierre Strong, you have Ramondre Stevenson and Damian Williams already. You are set there, and it is a proven model that works. What are you doing? C+. I felt bad even giving him a C+. I could have given this draft a D. Not a fan of what they did here. I know Strange is a solid player that will play for a decade, but he's just not expected to be selected in the top 50. Bill, come on, baby. Fall back, get yourself together, or retire. Your thoughts, Spencer?
Just get a GM.
Mercy.
Give the job to someone else. You can have your input, obviously, but you already looked at what the freedom that Dave Ziegler now has with the Raiders. The fruits of his labor are going through. So that just proves to me that, well, it's
upsetting.
It's to no surprise, but Bill Belichick runs the show there, and he makes the final say. And I think Dave, now that he has the opportunity to kind of do what he wants, he's proving how good he is and how good of an asset they lost.
Terrible draft in my mind. But, I mean, I'm just a guy who does talk show radio for fun and hopes to one day get paid. Bill Belichick has got how many rings? So let me fall back and dust myself off. But, there's a lot of people that shame the same sentiments here as you and I, Spencer. Next, New Orleans Saints, another team that I didn't like their draft. C+ at best. I don't like their team, period. I was talking to this cop who was standing next to me. He was trying to convince me that this team is actually on the rise, and I just don't see it. I think the days of you seeing that their stud wide receiver being any good is over. So they go up and they draft up and they get Chris Olave. I like Olave, I do, but Jameis Winston is the quarterback there now. They who knows what are they doing with this quarterback that they have that they're trying to turn into a tight end, whatever his name is, I can't remember. They don't know what position this guy plays. They gave this guy $100 trillion. I like Northern Iowa's Trevor Penning. You need guys to help keep your quarterback upright, so you hit there. Alontae Taylor, you hit there. But they didn't really have a whole lot of other picks. And when you trade up for Olave, that means that you are really banking on this guy showing up. They gave up a lot to get Olave. The over-under for Olave's touchdowns is 4.5. If he doesn't double that, they missed on him. And so I'm not in love with their draft. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I like Chris Olave. I don't.
You like him 5 touchdowns this year, Olave? They gave up a boatload to get this guy, right?
Well, they did, and I think that's the problem.
They gave him too much.
I don't know if he's worth that much.
He's not, in my mind.
He's small. He's
small.
Shifty. He's not a bad player. I don't know. That one I'm not sure about. It just seemed random. I don't think that they needed wide receiver help that badly. Michael Thomas is coming back. You would assume they haven't traded him.
They haven't traded him,
so they must plan on using him. I mean, if I look at his stats right, this guy has Hall of Fame level stats that he's been going throughout his career. And they also love the other wide receiver who they had last year. I forget his name now, but I felt like that part of their team was filled in. So it's
they got a bunch of guys in Michael Thomas.
Why go so hard to get another guy?
I know
it's cool. It's good to have a great wide receiver room, but doesn't your team need a whole lot of other things to keep it going?
I don't know, man. I didn't like their draft at all. Suspect at best. Again, I think you give up too much for a guy like Olave when a team like Kansas City fell back and said, we're not going to go get that guy. And you look at their draft versus this draft, they filled the needs. The Saints have a lot of needs. The defense is fantastic for sure, but I think they need to get a quarterback. Malik Willis would look good in a Saints uniform. Now, that's something I really like. I like that. And I'm not saying you have to spend your first 2 picks to get him there. He fell all the way for a reason. But I don't love what they did there. Who Dat's going to be solid on defense, terrible on offense. They're going to win 9 games. They're not going to do – they're going to be another team they're just not ready to make that next step. That's who they are. And they got a brand-new coach. Let's see what kind of philosophy this guy tries to instill into these players. Alvin Kamara could be in jail. I mean, they got a lot of problems. A lot of problems. Next. Big Blue. New York Football Giants, A-. Loved their draft. Loved. Kayvon Thibodeau is made for New York. That attitude, the brand, you couldn't have landed in a better spot. Think O.C. Umenyiora. Think Strahan, maybe not as good. Think solid, big blue defender with an attitude. They nailed this pick. Evan Neal in the second round. Evan Neal could have gone number 1 overall, and they get him with their second pick. No other team nailed their first 2 picks like the New York Football Giants.
hey, Kayvon Thibodeau could be better than Kayvon Walker year one. So,
Facts.
like, the fact that they got him at 5. You know, he's got a while. He's not like super ready, but he's got great explosion. I mean, all the things that you really like, the tangibles that you want to see at a defensive end. So
Go
I thought
look
that
at
was
his
great.
Oregon tape. This guy was a monster.
Yeah, super good.
He's a good player.
I don't really know why he fell so much.
Attitude.
Yeah, but I mean,
Attitude. They're like, dude,
football players are
are you
insane.
committed to playing football? Are you about Kayvon Thibodeau? Like, and I get you wanting to have a brand. You know what I mean? Like, we get that. You want to make money more ways than just football. But you're a rookie, and all you should be thinking about is the playbook and carrying the senior guys' pads. That's it. And so that scared a bunch of people off. And he falls to, I couldn't think of a better place for him to fall.
No, and Evan Neal's a beast. So
Beast! What are these guys thinking, letting these guys sit there?
Best-
Both of these guys could have been number 1 draft picks, and nobody would have batted an eye.
yeah, so good,
Nuts.
Good
And
for Big Blue.
Good for them, man. They need it. I mean, they really need it. They are not picking up Daniel Jones' 5th option, so this is it for him. They bring in Wandale Robinson. I like that pick. OG Joshua Ezendu. I like that pick. Dude, they stuck their foot in the ass of this draft. They did what they had to do. I like what Joe Schoen did. They took a firm grip on this draft and said, this is what we need. We traded down twice. We're going to go get these players, and we are going to build this team back from the embarrassment that it's been for years. And I like it. They got adequate value at the position of need in Bellinger, and they found a Jabril Peppers type day 3 value in a hybrid safety in Belton. I love what they did. They are going to be on their way back. The only reason I didn't give them an A+ is because I have concerns about how they are handling Daniel Jones. If you don't have a generational quarterback, if you don't have a franchise quarterback, you cannot win a Super Bowl. You have a 5% chance of winning a Super Bowl. Nick Foles is the only guy I can remember in recent times to win a Super Bowl. And I think Jesus won that Super Bowl for the Eagles, quite frankly.
The Holy Spirit was going through Nick Foles that year.
Oh, dude, it's a team full of Christians. I really believe that. Afterward, they all came out and they were all talking about Jesus. I'm like, man, Jesus, you threw these guys a bone. Right on. Next, the Jets. Jets. Love their draft. Talking to my boys during the draft, every single pick they hit, they stuck their foot in the ass of this draft. Sauce Gardner for the Jets. Fire. He should not have been there. I know they were surprised that he was even there. They had to take him, and they did. Garrett Wilson, exactly what they need to go along with Braxton Berrios. Now we're cooking with gas. You're giving Zach some things to throw to. But the one that just crushes me is how is Jermaine Johnson there at 26 for the Jets? How? They get A+ across the board for their first 4 picks. And then Iowa State's Breece Hall comes in and rounds it out. Michael Carter, son, your days are numbered. Go look right now. Stop what you're doing, people. Go look at Breece Hall's tape on YouTube. This guy's an absolute stud. They are in good shape here. The Jets are building a bully finally. They get a tight end, an offensive tackle, and a defensive end rounds them out. A+ job for them. I love what they're doing. Look. This is exactly the type of draft that Robert Saleh wanted. He got every player he wanted. Christmas came early for New York. Now, will it make a difference right away? Maybe not. It might take 2 or 3 years before you see a lot of this stuff come to fruition. But there's no denying that they're cooking with gas, and Jet fans have something to be excited about. Did I tell you I ran into Fireman Ed at my restaurant a couple weeks ago?
That's funny. No.
All that posse that goes to those Jet games, the guy that like holds them on his shoulder, they were all there. I was like, this is rad. I got a couple pictures with him. He's actually a cool guy.
That's funny.
And I was like, man, it's just because I'm from New York, and I'm like, it's just tough being a Jet fan. He was like, yeah, but he kept saying that there is nothing better.
To get 4 starters in the first 4 picks.
Day ones.
That doesn't happen
They
a lot.
won the draft.
It doesn't happen a lot.
They won the draft. Next. Fly, Eagles, fly. Another team that I think had a fabulous draft. Grade A. Georgia defensive tackle Jordan Davis. Jordan Davis is you and me combined, and then double his weight and double his muscle. Jordan Davis, this guy should be protecting Joe Biden. He is an absolute mammoth. They're going to have to name a cheesesteak after this guy. 6'6", like 350. No one is moving this guy. How was this guy available there?
Yeah, I don't know.
How?
See, that seems like something like That's crazy. He's one of the best players in the draft, skill-wise. And that's what I'm talking about. Everybody wants to get the guy that, like, the reach, because, like, defensive tackle, isn't the sexiest pick. But, dude, like, this guy's going to be your defensive tackle for the next 12 years.
When you say beast, you see Jordan Davis. I looked up beast in Webster's, and there was his picture. When you type in beast on Wikipedia, and this guy's mugshot, I mean, the guy
is as solid as it gets.
You're not running anywhere towards this guy.
Such a good pick. Such a good pick.
That might have been one of the top 3 best picks in round 1.
Those guys don't fall to 13th overall.
This
not
is
like
what I'm
that.
talking about. Makes no sense. They get Nebraska center Cam Jurgens. Love it. Love it. Kelsey ain't going to be there forever. Smart. I like what the Eagles are doing. And they rounded out with Georgia linebacker Nakobe Dean, who there's some issues around Dean, but for Dean to be picked where he was picked is absolutely criminal. And then to top it all off.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
To top it all off, they Tennessee. That is amazing. You're going to end up paying him less than what Devontae Adams got paid, than what Tyreek Hill got paid, and then you secured him with the 4-year deal. Brilliant job. I'm not a Howie Roseman fan. Brilliant.
And again, put A.J. Brown in context. The receivers that were there at that point of what they traded away.
You put A.J. Brown on one side, and what's that other amazing receiver that they just drafted on the other?
Even just think about Chris Olave. Like, think about having A.J. Brown versus Chris Olave. It's a big gap.
It's a big gap.
It's a big gap.
If you can make it so that you don't have to pay him $30 million. You see, a lot of these guys, Tyreek Hill just wanted to be the highest paid guy. Devontae Adams wanted to go to the Raiders, but he wanted to be the highest paid guy. He wanted to stay with Tennessee, and Tennessee lowballed him with some nonsense like $16 million a year. You cannot offer A.J. Brown that money.
Not the market for receivers.
Come on. Now, Jalen Hurts is in a position where it's a no more excuses year for him. And if it doesn't pan out for him, get him out of there and go draft a quarterback. But you're set. You're set. They had a fantastic draft. Fly, Eagles, fly. Next. Pittsburgh Steelers. I like their draft. I do. A lot of people didn't. I like the draft. Grade A. Okay? I think taking Kenny Pickett there was a no-brainer. I know his hands are small. I know this wasn't a top-heavy quarterback draft. You have to do something. You have to. You cannot go with what you have right now.
They didn't have to trade up to get him either.
No.
So
they don't trade up.
You got to give credit there.
2 things that the Pittsburgh Steelers don't do. They don't pay, and they don't trade up. If it comes to you and you want to stay, we're going to have you with open arms. But we're not giving up anything to get anything. And so that's why that makes this such a win. That turns a B grade into an A grade. I like Pickett. Hometown favorite. This is a win. Trubisky may or may not even be your starter. Now, that's huge. George Pickens. I love George Pickens. Now, I know he's kind of weird, got kind of an attitude problem, but there's no denying that the boy can ball. Chase Claypool, pack your bags, son. I'm telling you. They don't want you in Pittsburgh.
I trust anybody that Pittsburgh drafts at receiver. They know
they nail it.
Their scouting for
I
receivers
wanted
is
Pickens.
next level.
I was pissed because the Chiefs traded down. They had that spot. I was like, get Pickens. And they traded down and took Sky Moore. So, if Sky Moore, you watching right now, boy, you better. When I look at George Pickens' numbers and I look at your numbers at the end of the day, they better be better or at least comparable because Pickens was right there for the Pickens. So, I love this pick. Texas A&M D-line, DeMarvin Leal, great pick. Another wide receiver, Calvin Austin III, great pick. Connor Hayward backing up the Moose. I love their draft. And to round it out, they take another quarterback just in case. They take this kid out of South Dakota State. A draft. I like what they're doing. Pittsburgh is not far off. Get that line together. Give the ball to Najee. Get out of the way. Let's roll. Next. The 49ers. I didn't love their draft. They really didn't do a whole lot. Very uninspiring. They get a B- grade from me. They take USC edge Drake Jackson. They had to do it. Running back Teron Davis-Price. They need more help. They're a running back-led team. They don't want to throw the ball. They want to protect Trey Lance. Who knows what's happening with Jimmy G? See, you never notice, Spencer, that when you have these quarterbacks stuck on teams, that it kind of that have unresolved stuff. Jimmy G, it kind of screws with your draft because you're still kind of trying to figure out what to do here. The Cleveland quarterback, same thing. You just got these guys, and you're like, is he going to play for us? Is he going to start? So their draft is not really based off a big decision here, and I think that's kind of what happened here. Wide receiver Danny Gray, offensive tackle Spencer Buford. I like it, but like this has to be, are we helping Trey Lance? Did we really help Trey Lance here? What are we doing with Jimmy G? Did we kind of forget about our defense? Did we wait too late? They get a couple cornerbacks, one from Iowa State, one from Penn State. Okay, but I'm not in love with what they did here. No name jumps off the page at me. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, think about this. The Washington Commanders sent 2 third-round picks, for Carson Wentz. Couldn't gotten something a little similar for Jimmy G. I know you probably want a little bit more, but it's like at the end of the day,
you could have got a first-round pick for Jimmy G.
How much better would their draft be if they had an extra pick?
Yeah.
So I think keeping your feet in the sand and saying I'm only going to trade until I get the most value ever possible, it backfires a little bit because it alters everything.
What does it tell your quarterback who you gave up a lot to get?
That your other quarterback's still on the roster, yeah.
Trey Lance is supposed to be your guy.
And supposedly it was pretty steep because the Colts would have taken Jimmy G over Matt Ryan any day of the week.
He's a stiff.
So I don't know what their asking price was, but it was too much.
Yeah. Unfortunate because I don't think they had a great draft at all. It is what it is. Next. The 12th man, Seattle Seahawks. Another team that I don't think really had a great draft. I give them a C+. I met a couple Seahawk fans out there. Cool people, nice guys. Pacific Northwest deserves better, but they're kind of falling apart. They don't have a quarterback. Drew Lock sucks. Geno Smith sucks. You know what I mean? All this talk circling around, are they going to trade DK? All this stuff is happening, so you're taking a storm into your draft. Your first draft pick is a great pick because you got a day one starter at offensive tackle. I get that. Fine. And then you go after Boye Mafe, who I actually liked. I wanted Mafe on the Chiefs. But the rest of your draft does not really instill much fear into the opposing team at all. Kenneth Walker, Michigan State, he's decent. He's decent. Are you finally going to get rid of Chris Carson, though, who's hurt every single year? There are 3 rites of passage happening in this world. Inflation right now, death, and Chris Carson's going to be injured by week 4.
It's true.
It's just a fact. You know what I mean? Like, there's 4 seasons in New York. Chris Carson will be injured halfway through them. So I didn't love what they did. I mean, you're clearly seeing the effects of the Russell Wilson trade happen here, and they are in a true rebuild. But me personally, you don't have a quarterback. You don't have a quarterback. Malik Willis would have looked great in teal.
Yeah, I don't know if you necessarily need to jump on a quarterback just because you need one so badly. Like, they're probably going to get Bryce Young next year, and that's probably their number one priority going into the season, which is sad to already think about next year's draft, but it's true.
It's a walk year.
But there's one issue I do have with this draft, and that it's Cross, you get drafted. That's fine. He's a good pass protector. He's not a great run blocker, so it's like you're going to get then in the 3rd round, like the number 1 running back of the draft. So you get a pass protector and then a running back. There's no synergy there. Like, you want to build your team off
guys.
You draft the best pass blocking guy and you don't have a quarterback yet. Like, I know he's going to be there for a long time, so it's like next year really doesn't matter to Seattle because I know how bad they're going to be, but I just don't like the draft philosophy of not picking guys that go along the same thought process.
Yeah, me as well, and I'm here to tell you, I can pretty much guarantee that this team is going to trade for Baker Mayfield. Your day 1 starter cannot be Drew Lock. I'm sorry. It can't.
I don't know why they even took him in that trade.
They threw him in. Denver couldn't wait to make this trade. I know they got raped, but still, you know what I mean?
Crazy.
At the end of the day, they got Russell Wilson. They're going for it. They think they can replicate what they did with Peyton Manning with Russell Wilson. And at 34 years of age, I don't see, quite frankly, why they can't. Next, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, grade A. Had a good draft. Again, nothing that it's crazy, but they had a good draft. Houston defensive end Logan Hall, Central Michigan's Luke Godke, and Arizona State running back Rashad White. Solid picks all over. They traded out of the 1st round, and they still got Hall. That's good, okay? He's like a similar version of William Golston, all right? I like what Jason Litch did here, okay? They needed to find a receiving threat to get rid when they got rid of Ronald Jones, and that's exactly what they did. Look, They're a solid team as long as Brady is there, and I actually like the fact that Coach has stepped down. I think going to the front office was good for him. I think him and Brady butted heads a lot. There were some reports that Brady would come in prepared and the game plan wasn't even ready yet. I think that this team is going to be a solid threat moving forward as long as Brady is the quarterback. They still got solid pieces everywhere. I mean, Mike Evans is a monster. They're fine.
Yeah, I think you have to look at, especially when you go to their running back, pick 91 overall. Running backs don't go in the first round anymore, not really usually. So
they need that guy.
They need they want to replace like Giovanni Bernard and stuff. Like,
He's
they don't want Ronald
Jones is gone. I mean, Leonard Fournette gets hurt.
So I don't.
Nobody.
Normally, when you think of third round picks, you don't think of guys who are going to contribute all that much. But when it comes to running backs in later rounds, like those guys absolutely have a chance to start. So I thought that was a really smart pick for them. The other ones are just kind of so-so, and you'll just have to wait and see. At least for me.
Yeah, I agree. Next, touchdown Titans. Tennessee Titans. I saw a lot of people giving them high grade marks. I give them a grade A. Maybe I'll give them more like a B, B plus. I like Treylon Burks, solid. They had a backup plan. You know what I mean? They get rid of their best receiver, but they had the backup plan right there. It was all planned, precisely, well thought through and well done. They didn't want to pay A.J. Brown. I can't fault you for that, but you can't go and tell your fans that you're trying to win unless you really think that Burks is going to be every bit as good as Brown. Period. End of statement. It's just that simple. It's just that simple. In my mind, they should have kept Brown, paid him, and drafted Treylon Burks. Now you're cooking with gas, okay? Cornerback Roger McCreary, great. Offensive tackle, Nicholas Petit, how do you pronounce his name? Friere, 69 overall. But the big win for them is Malik Willis. Malik Willis from Liberty falling that far is an absolute crime. It is. I think he could be better right now than their starting quarterback. Which
I don't know about that. But
I don't know, man.
It's good.
I see. It's got Steve McNair written all over it.
To be that late and then to still get that guy after everything that happened, you just have to be really happy about. And that's the biggest win for them. In that there's no skin off their back if he's great or not because you got him so late. But it's a high. There's not a lot of high variance guys.
It's high
that
upside
late
for sure.
Yeah, to be able to get a high variance someone like 86. What more can you get out of a draft? How many opportunities do you get to take someone like that? Just not very often.
The fact that he fell that far is problematic to me. I mean, what is it? Something? Is he like eating Big Macs at 4 a.m? Like, did he wake somebody quietly? Like, why did Malik Willis fall this far? I don't understand. And him falling this far cost him about $25 million. You know, and so I think he is better than Pickett personally. So there's something behind the scenes that we don't know. Yeah. But I like that spot. Again, I see a lot of Steve McNair there. It's quite possible that he might play some point this year. You know, it's not like they have Drew Brees at quarterback. It's not like they got Peyton Manning at quarterback. Quarterback's okay. I like him in that spot.
They wanted an upgrade, so they took a guy who might be one.
At that spot, I don't think it could go wrong, and that's why they get the higher draft grade. If without Malik Willis there, they would have probably got a C from me.
Sure.
But you got to pay A.J. Brown. I get not paying him, but I think if you're trying to win, you got to pay A.J. Brown. Derrick Henry cannot carry you forever, Tennessee. Next. The Commanders. I hate even calling them the Commanders. Washington Redskins. Screw that. I didn't like their draft. I give them a B. I do like Jahan Dotson, though. I do. Terry McLaurin gets no help. You know what I mean? And I know Wentz is a scrub, but Wentz is better when he has weapons versus a weapon. Look at Michael Pittman. T.Y. Hilton gave him no help. None. Thus, you saw Wentz stink. You know, when Wentz was on the Eagles, he had help. So I think Jahan Dotson will come right in, and I think he'll be a good weapon. I like that pick. Okay? Fidgerin Mathis at defensive tackle. Can't go wrong there. Brian Robinson. I don't know if I would have taken a running back there. I would have probably drafted more defense. Their defense really underachieved last year in a big way and took a huge step back. That was problematic for me. Tulsa guard Chris Paul. Tight end Cole Turner. These are just kind of guys to me. I don't know. I don't really love the Commanders. I don't see them winning a ton of games this year unless that defense comes back to what we saw in 2020 versus 2021. Your thoughts?
Yeah, they're probably really bummed about the way the wide receiver class ended up shaping out and until it got to them. Like they probably didn't want to take Dotson at number 16, but they had to.
Dotson's a good player. I like him more than a lot of people do. Again, they could have done more if they had picks, but you're working with what you got at that point.
Well,
I think for that spot,
you got to give Carson Wentz a chance. You gave up 2 third-round picks for him, so that's one way to do it.
Carson Wentz has to play every snap.
And even then, it's like, even if it doesn't, whatever quarterback comes in next, you're giving him 2 really good wide receiver weapons. So I mean, it really did play out for the best for them. Like, I don't know if they necessarily made that just for Carson Wentz's sake. I think they probably are waiting for the next guy to come around, and then he'll come into a really good situation.
Yeah, I would agree with that as well. So that's the breakdown. That's all 32 teams, all letter grades out of the Grab It Television Studios here in sunny Las Vegas, Nevada. My name is Dexter Reid, Spencer The Wiz to your right, giving it to you the way you need to have it. After going through this again, my overall number 1 winner of this year's 2022 draft will be the New York Jets. To get 4 day 1 starters, I don't see how anyone's beating that out. And if I have to pick one biggest loser, I'm going to go with the New England Patriots. I think they had a horrible draft. I think at this point we're potentially living off the name New England. And I think that Bill Belichick is a great coach, but not good at drafting. Your winner and your loser for the draft.
I don't know if there's any other way to interpret it. I have to completely agree with you there. Although I think you could honestly say that the Jacksonville Jaguars lost the draft the most. And it may not even be to their fault, because like this is the worst year I can think of in the past 10 that having first overall is really kind of meaningless, because normally you get your pick of the litter when it comes to quarterbacks. There's usually like a really good somebody, but there really wasn't a really good somebody.
8th round pick could have been the first round pick. The 8th pick overall. The 9th pick overall could have been.
Which that just doesn't. There's usually a gap.
Never happen. Yeah.
So I don't know if I want to call them losers, but they're a good honorable mention there. But definitely the winners. You could also argue the New York Giants as well. But if a gun to my head, it's the Jets, and it's the Patriots having the worst.
Yeah. Good call. Well, that's the show, everybody. We want to remind you that we're everywhere on social media. Check us out, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok. If there's a social media outlet, there's a good chance that World of Matchups is out there bringing you the information that you need on the National Football League, which over here is 24/7, 365. There is no off season. We'll be bringing you some more quality content between now and when the season kicks off and training camp hits. Stay tuned, like, subscribe, go to grabit.com. Let us know that you are out there, so when we send it out there, we'll know where to send it to. On behalf of Grab It Television, Spencer The Wiz, my name is Dexter Reid. We'll see you guys in a couple weeks. Peace.